Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody here had a very blessed and safe New Year. Over the course of the past several days during this octave of Christmas, I've been doing for my spiritual reading from a little book by an author you know that I love, the Swiss theologian Hans Urs von Balthasar. It's a small one called Unless You Become Like This Child. And it's a pretty spiritually profound book. But there was one particular quote that really jumped out at me, so much so that I sort of typed it up and put it on Facebook today. It dealt with the nature of Jesus' existence and preaching. And I'll give the quote and then sort of develop the rest of our reflection from it. He says, Jesus speaks with such familiarity about the child-specific manner of being and dignity that such knowledge must be rooted in his own experience. This experience of childhood, further, has remained, in the case of Jesus, a deeper and more authentic dimension of consciousness that can be said of any philosopher or founder of a religion, or of any psychologist who attempts to relive by empathy the phase of childhood. There's a lot going on there, but what Balthasar is basically saying is if we look at the teaching of Jesus, he has this beautiful understanding of the nature of childhood and what it means to be a child, and a great appreciation and love for children in a way that no other philosopher or founder of religion does. And he says because basically these guys will often theorize about it and sort of go in a very abstract way about what it means to be a child, but Jesus has experienced it in a real way, in a pure way, and it's influenced everything that he's done. It's influenced the gospel, this nature of being a child and the message of being childlike. And so we can ask ourselves, well, where did the Lord's experience of childhood come from to be able to transform him so much and to be able to impact his preaching of the gospel? Well, of course, it comes from his experience primarily of the love of God, the eternal Father. Because he is the Son of God, he is known for all eternity, the Father's love and his nature as Son. Even in his human intellect, he would have had the beatific vision. Even though he couldn't have spoken it, he could understand and experience God the Father's love for him. A beautiful language of describing God the Father's love that we see so often in Jesus in his prayers and his dependence on the Father. But yet there's another influence on a human level. The human level that helped Jesus to really appreciate and live to the fullness what it means to be a child. And that is going to be, of course, the love that he received from Mary, his mother. The mother of Jesus, the mother of God. And we talk about this a lot. We sing about it in hymns, but we really don't often take the time to really meditate on it. About that relationship of Mary as mother to Jesus, the Son. Imagine in the womb the care that Our Lady had in the singing to Jesus and letting him know in that deep, real way that he's wanted and he's affirmed. As a little bitty baby, Jesus suckling at Mary's breast, of him falling asleep beside her, of that love and that tenderness, of the smile that Mary would often give and trying to elicit laughter from that little child. Then, of course, Christ as an infant or a young boy, teaching him, playing with him, helping him learn how to pray. All of these different things. It was so formational on Jesus' understanding and experience as a child. It was Mary's love, it was Mary's motherhood that primarily, on a human level, formed Christ's childhood and made it so blessed, made it so important that it influenced everything else that he did. But here's the twist. And this is something that Balthasar brings up a little later, and so I'll sort of parallel that first quote with another one. where he starts reflecting on Our Lady and the fact of why she was such a good mother, of why she was so effective, of why she was able to love and give of herself in this very special situation. Why was Mary such a graceful, loving mother? And he gives the answer. He says, sort of ironically, it is because her experience of motherhood was rooted in her childlike nature. Because Mary was such a good mother because she never lost that sense, that understanding of being a child of God. He says, like no other creature, therefore, she, Mary, was initiated into all the mysteries of being a child. Yet the unheard of but essential thing about her was that she could not outgrow this condition of being a child of God, even as she continued to mature physically and spiritually. So often when we mature, we forget our childlike nature. We leave it behind. We become adults. Regardless, he continues, of how her relationship to her earthly parents may have changed during her process of maturing, given that the shadow of original sin did not fall upon her, we know that her childlike relationship to God could not have been troubled by these changes. Consequently, under the guidance of God's grace, she was enabled, while remaining a child, to bear maternal fruit, and as a mother to remain inviolably childlike. Not immature, not a baby, but maintaining that childlike nature that as the mother of God, as the mother of Jesus, such an effective, wonderful, graceful mother, was always dependent upon God the Father and His love as a child. And so that's the real irony, that Christ's message of being childlike was influenced by Our Lady's mothering nature, but yet it was her living out the gospel before Jesus even preached it, of being childlike, that influenced her motherhood. So what does that show us? How does we wrap this up? As we sort of wind down the octave of Christmas, we're reminded that there are two main feasts that we as Catholics celebrate. The most important, of course, is Easter, the culmination of Christ's suffering, death, and resurrection. And what's the image that we focus on? The cross, the instrument of Christ's death, but also the instrument of our salvation. And so often we say that the cross is the center of Christianity. It's the icon of what it means to be a Christian. But yet the other feast is the one we celebrate today, the birth of Jesus. We continue to celebrate during this octave. And what's the symbol there? The baby, the child. And so we can argue that along with the cross is that central image we hear so much, we see about, the image in the stable, the image that are under all of your Christmas trees of that little child, is just as important of a symbol for Christianity if we are going to be real and true about the message Christ preached and about the life that Our Lady lived. And so we ask Our Lady's intercession today on this her feast, and it's so wonderful seeing people here to honor Mary as our Heavenly Mother. And indeed, we focus on the cross as now we begin our journey towards Lent and Easter. But never forget the importance in our spirituality, in the life of Jesus, and of course in the life of Mary, of the childlike nature of that image of the baby, of the child, completely dependent on God. Amen.